This passbook is trash. That's how it started. Loud. Easy. Like a joke he knew would land. My son stood by the kitchen island with a microphone. Karaoke junk. Champagne fizzed. Ice clicked. People laughed too fast. Like they were checking each other for permission. He held the book up between two fingers. Old. Soft at the corners. The last thing my husband gave me before he died 3 years ago. I hadn't planned to explain it. I just wanted my son to see it. He tilted the mic. Trash belongs with trash. Then he dropped it into the ice bucket. It bobbed for a second among the cubes before the champagne soaked into the yellowed pages. Dragging it down, it looked like a drowning bird. Someone clapped. Someone whistled. My son grinned. I froze. I do that. Always have. My body waits even when my mind is already done. I reached into the bucket. The cold burned my hand. I pulled the book out, heavier now, ink bleeding, and pressed it to my sweater. I caught the smell of his cologne. Cheap. The one he wears when he wants to look important. I didn't say anything. I walked past the speakers, past the phone's recording, past people who suddenly wouldn't meet my eyes. If you've ever been humiliated in your own house, you know how quiet everything gets. My name is Charlene. I am 65. I sat in my car and stared at my hands. Red. Numb. I remembered something my husband told me near the end, casual, almost careless. If you don't know what to do with that, he said, tapping the book, take it to the bank. So I drove, not home, toward the city, and I knew this night wasn't finished with me yet. 3 years. That's how long my husband has been gone. Long enough for people to stop lowering their voices around me. Long enough for my son to start acting like the house came with him, not me. After the funeral, he moved back in for a bit. That bit stretched. His boxes never stayed closed. My things did. He stacked my photo albums in the hall closet and called it organizing. He slid my husband's tools into the garage corner and told me not to trip over them, like they were hazards. Like I was. Mom, you don't need all this, he told me one afternoon, holding up a box with my name on it. His tone was patient, managerial. I'm just trying to clean. I know where everything is. I told him. He laughed. Not cruel, worse, dismissive. That's the problem. That was the rhythm after my husband died. I spoke. My son corrected. I hesitated. He decided. Power shifts don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they just keep moving the furniture. He brought friends over without asking. Music too loud. Bottles I didn't recognize. When I asked him to turn it down, he put his hand on my shoulder like I was fragile. Relax. He told me. It's my place too. I let that slide. I let a lot slide. Grief makes you tired in places you can't explain. Honestly, I kept thinking if I stayed quiet long enough, things would settle. Once, I mentioned the passbook, just in passing. I didn't even show it to him then. He waved it off. Old stuff, he muttered. Dad was sentimental. That word stuck. Sentimental. Like it meant useless. If you're wondering why I didn't push back harder back then, trust me, I've replayed that part myself more times than I can count. That night, driving away from the party, I realized something uncomfortable. I hadn't just been holding on to my husband's things. I'd been holding my breath. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I already knew what this chapter was about. It wasn't the passbook. Not really. It was how my son lived like the future had already paid him. He liked to talk numbers when his friends were around. Big ones. Not exact. Just enough to sound impressive. Once everything's settled, he'd tell them, leaning back, glass in hand. You know how it is. They nodded like they did. I heard it from the hallway once. My dad planned well. He told a guy named Mark, someone from work, who always showed up empty-handed and drank the most. Old school money. He tapped the counter. Long term. I stepped into the kitchen and the sentence died midair. Mom. He went. Quick smile. Like he'd caught himself. Didn't hear you. You were talking about your father. I replied. Was I? He shrugged. Just background stuff. Background. That was me too, apparently. The bills still came in my husband's name, but the charges were all his. New streaming services I never watched. A gym membership he didn't use, all bleeding from the account he thought was already his. When I asked about the credit card charges, he waved his phone at me. I've got it under control. Under control meant borrowing from friends. It meant floating one expense on another. It meant acting confident enough that nobody checked. Once, I told him I wasn't comfortable covering something anymore. He laughed. Relax, it's all the same pot. No. I told him, it isn't. He stared at me like I'd switched languages. Mom, you don't need to stress about money. Dad took care of that. That was the moment. I felt it then. The assumption. The quiet math he'd already done in his head. Whatever existed belonged to him by default. So when he saw the passbook at the party, the sneer made sense. It wasn't just old paper to him. It was a loose end. Something he hadn't budgeted for. Fear doesn't always look like panic. Sometimes it looks like arrogance with a microphone. I parked the car and shut the engine off. The house lights were still on. Music faint in the distance. I sat there a second longer, hands on the wheel, knowing one thing for sure, tomorrow was about to stop paying for him. I didn't announce anything. I just moved. My son noticed halfway to the door. Mom, where are you going? His voice pitched light, like this was a joke he could still land. I'm leaving. I told him. He laughed once. Short. Don't be dramatic. I kept walking. The passbook was tucked under my arm, wet against my side. Champagne kept dripping onto the floor behind me. You're really doing this, he called out. Over some old paper, I stopped. Not to argue, just long enough to turn. You don't get to decide what matters to me. That landed. I could see it. His smile flattened. He didn't expect pushback. Not even that much. Mom. He started. Softer now. The tone he uses when he wants compliance. You're embarrassing yourself. That one hit. I won't pretend it didn't. Embarrassment has been his favorite lever lately. It works on most people. Good. I answered. Then we're even. A couple of his friends stared. One girl looked at her phone like she'd just remembered an urgent text. Nobody moved to stop me. That told me everything. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in. My hands were still red from the ice. The passbook felt heavier than it should have, like it had soaked up more than champagne. I'll be honest for a second, this was the part where I usually folded. Apologized. Explained. Made it easier for everyone else. If you've done that your whole life, stopping feels wrong. Almost rude. I stepped outside anyway. The door shut behind me. Music thumped on. Uninterrupted. I stood on the porch, breathing, counting to 10 because that's what I do when I'm close to crying. Then I walked to my car. I didn't look back. Not because I was strong, because if I did, I might have gone back in and undone everything. I drove without a plan, just forward. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. The road blurred once I got past the lights. Not from crying, from thinking too fast. My husband hated paperwork, hated banks even more. He used to joke they smiled while taking things from you. So when he handed me the passbook near the end, it felt wrong. Out of character, we were at the kitchen table. He looked tired, not dramatic, just quieter. Keep this. He told me, sliding it over like it didn't matter. What is it, I asked? Something old. I turned it in my hands. The cover was already worn back then. Do I need to do anything with it? Not now. That should have been my cue to ask more. I didn't. I was tired too. Tired of hospitals. Tired of waiting for answers that never came. He tapped the book once. If you're ever unsure about this, he added, take it to the bank. I laughed. The bank. For that. He looked at me. Really looked. Yes. The bank. That was it. No explanation. He changed the subject. Asked if I'd eaten. Practical to the end. I didn't think about it again until the night my son called it trash. Driving now. The memory looped. Not the words. The certainty behind them. Like he'd closed a door I didn't know existed yet. I pulled into a parking lot and sat there. The passbook lay on the seat beside me in a grocery bag I'd grabbed without thinking. Pages damp. Ink smudged. I almost turned back. Told myself it was late. Embarrassing. That voice sounded a lot like my son. Then I heard my husband again. Calm. Steady. Take it to the bank. So I listened. I started the engine and headed downtown. Toward counters and rules and people who didn't know me as someone's mother. I didn't expect anything. I just needed to stop guessing. The bank was quiet in that stiff, polite way. I stood in line with the passbook tucked inside the grocery bag. The girl behind the counter looked barely out of school. Neat ponytail. Soft voice. Name tag read Emily. Hi. She opened, fingers already hovering over the keyboard. How can I help you today? I need to check the balance on this. I told her. Sliding the book across. It belonged to my husband. She picked it up carefully, like it might fall apart. Is the account holder deceased? Yes. And you're Charlene? I paused. His wife. She nodded, typed, stopped, looked down at the book again, then back at the screen. How old is this account, she asked. I don't know. I answered. A long time. Her fingers moved slower now. She leaned closer to the monitor. Her mouth opened, closed. She cleared her throat. Has anyone accessed this account recently? Her tone shifted, still polite. Tighter. No. And no one else has authorization. She glanced up. Eyes sharp now. Not that I know of. She clicked once more. The teller's fingers froze. She looked at the screen, then at the old book, then back at me with a look of pure bewilderment. Ma'am, I need to consult my manager regarding the status of this specific Vault class account. Please, make yourself comfortable in the lounge. She stood before I could respond. I walked fast toward the glass offices. I watched her point at the screen, watched a man in a suit lean in, his brows knit. I stood there with my hands folded, suddenly aware of how small I probably looked. Grocery bag, old sweater. If you've ever waited for someone else to decide your worth, you know that feeling. Heavy. Unfair. The man came over. Middle-aged. Calm. Ms. Charlene. He checked the book. Then me. I'm the branch manager. I'm going to ask you to step with us. With us. My voice didn't shake, which surprised me. Yes. He lowered his voice. There are some procedural things we need to review. Emily stayed close. Eyes still on the floor. I caught her whispering, I'm so sorry, as we walked. The office door closed behind us. The manager placed the passbook on the desk between us. Didn't touch it again. This account, he began, choosing each word, has a very long history. He looked at me differently now, not kindly, not dismissively, carefully. Ms. Charlene, he went on. There are records attached to this that haven't been reviewed in decades. I nodded once. That was all I had in me. He folded his hands. I'm going to ask you again. He continued. Steady. Please don't leave. And in that moment, I understood something simple and unsettling. Whatever this was, it was never meant to be ignored. The manager led me down a short hallway and into a room with a round table and no windows. He didn't rush. That alone felt different. Doors like that usually mean trouble or paperwork. This felt like neither. Please sit, he told me, pulling out a chair. I'm Daniel. I sat. He placed the passbook in the center, lined it up like it mattered. Emily stayed by the door, hands clasped, like she'd crossed into something bigger than her shift. Daniel opened a thin folder. Not thick, not dramatic. This account was established a very long time ago, he explained. It was structured to remain dormant unless specific conditions were met. I waited. Let him talk. That's a skill you pick up after years of being talked over. Your husband set this up to be quiet. He continued. No statements. No alerts. Minimal contact. He glanced at me. That's intentional. So why now? I asked. Because you're here, he replied, evenly, and because the ownership is clear. Emily shifted her weight. Daniel noticed and nodded once. A small cue. She stepped out and closed the door behind her. He leaned back. Procedurally, this changes how we handle everything connected to the account. Everything like what access, authorization, oversight. He paused. And protection. That word landed. Protection. I hadn't felt that in a while. I need to confirm, he went on, that no one else has ever acted on your behalf regarding this account. No one. I answered. I didn't even know what it was. Daniel exhaled. Slow. Then we'll keep it that way. If you'd told me an hour earlier that a stranger in a bank would talk to me like this, I'd have laughed. But here we were. He slid a form toward me. This isn't a transaction. He clarified, it's a safeguard. I read the top line. My name, only mine. I want to be clear, he added. Once we proceed, there are steps we can't reverse. I thought of my son, the microphone, the ice bucket. I understand. I told him. And for the first time that night, I did. Daniel nodded. Then, ma'am. He said, softer now. Please don't leave. Daniel didn't open the folder right away. He waited until I looked at him instead of the passbook. Your husband didn't just leave you a balance. He left you an irrevocable trust with a spendthrift clause. It means you have everything. And your son has no legal path to touch a single cent without your written, notarized consent. That word again. Structure. Like a spine. Like something meant to hold. He turned the folder so I could see. Not numbers, names, dates. My name appeared more than once. Always alone. No joint access, no secondary authority, no beneficiary lines pointing anywhere else. This account, he continued, tapping the page once, was designed to protect one person. You. I blinked. Not our son Daniel shook his head. Calm. Certain. No. There's no mechanism for transfer to anyone else unless you initiate it. Something in my chest loosened. Not relief exactly. Recognition. He anticipated pressure. Daniel went on. Requests. Assumptions. He glanced up. Family dynamics. That landed harder than it should have. I thought of my husband at the kitchen table. Fingers thin, voice steady. Voice. I'd asked him once, half joking, what would happen if our son pushed too hard after he was gone? He didn't laugh. He looked tired. He won't always be kind. He told me. Then, softer. But the bank will be fair. At the time, I thought he was being cynical or sentimental. Turns out he was being precise. Daniel slid another page forward. Full control rests with you. Access. Timing. Decisions. If you choose to do nothing, nothing happens. And if I choose something I asked, then it happens because you allowed it. I sat back. My hands felt empty without the grocery bag, without the weight of wet paper. Funny how fast things shift. Daniel watched me carefully now, like he was gauging whether I'd flinch. I didn't. I was past flinching. This isn't about money. I told him. Surprising myself. He nodded. It rarely is. If you're wondering whether I felt powerful in that moment, honestly, no, I felt late. Like I'd arrived at a conversation everyone else assumed I'd been having for years. Daniel closed the folder. "We'll document today as confirmation," he added. "After that, everything pauses until you decide otherwise." I thought of my son's voice, the microphone, the ice. "Pause is fine," I replied. "I've had enough noise." Daniel gave a small, respectful nod, not approval, recognition. As he stood to leave the room, I reached for the passbook and held it again. Dry now, lighter than before. Or maybe I was. My husband didn't leave me instructions. He left me space, and for the first time, I wasn't sure what I'd do with it. I didn't go home right away. I stopped at a cafe near the bank and sat there until my hands stopped shaking. Then I called my son, not to fight, just to reset the rules. He picked up on the third ring. "Mom, where did you go last night? I needed space." I told him, "And I'm taking some more." A pause, then a laugh that didn't quite land. "You're still upset about that thing I've revoked the supplementary cards." "Brandon," I said, "and the house I moved the title into the trust. Your tomorrow just ran out of credit." Silence. Then his voice tightened. "What do you mean?" "Frozen. You can't just, I can." I cut in, calm. And I did. He exhaled hard. "This is ridiculous." "You're overreacting. I'm reacting," I replied. "There's a difference." He started listing things, bills, commitments, plans, all the ways his future depended on me not following through. I let him talk. "That part was new. You're putting me in a bad position." He finished. "No," I said. "You did that yourself." Another pause. Longer. I could hear traffic on his end, life moving without him. "So what?" he asked. Slower now. "You're cutting me off. I'm stepping back." I told him. "You're an adult. You'll figure it out." That's it. His disbelief came through clear. After everything. After everything. The phrase people use when they mean after everything they assumed. "I'll be in touch when I'm ready," I added. "Don't show up unannounced." He scoffed. "You're serious?" "I am." The call ended without goodbye. I sat there a bit longer, coffee untouched. Choosing quiet over control doesn't feel like winning. It feels like standing still while someone else scrambles. When I finally stood up, my phone stayed silent. For the first time in a long time, that silence felt earned. I went back to the bank one last time that week. Daniel met me at the desk. No rush now. Everything remains paused. He told me, "Nothing moves unless you ask it to." "That's fine," I answered. "I'm not here to move anything." He nodded. Understood. I signed one page. Not to release funds. Not to transfer control, just to confirm I existed. My name, my hand, that mattered more than I expected. At home, I put the passbook in a drawer by the bed. Not a safe. Not a box. A drawer I open every day. I didn't keep it for money. I kept it because it proved something simple: I wasn't invisible. I just stopped insisting people see me. My son texted once. Short, practical. "We need to talk." I didn't answer. Not yet. Autonomy isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It waits. Here's the part I learned the hard way. Explaining yourself doesn't earn respect. Boundaries do. Silence does. Time does. If this story hit close to home, tap like so it reaches the people who need it. Drop a comment with what you would have kept. Subscribe if you want more stories told without polish or pretending. I closed the drawer, turned off the light. I didn't lose a son. I just stopped subsidizing a stranger who happened to share my DNA. He's about to find out that trash is a very expensive thing to lose. And tonight, that was enough. That was